I worked 2 jobs for 8 years to fund my brother's law degree. But when he graduated, he sued me for Nana Rose's home, calling me a stepping stone. So I waited until court, where one sealed document I held destroyed his entire future. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The smell of stale fryer grease and lemon-scented floor cleaner was the perfume of my existence. It clung to my hair, seeped into the pores of my skin, and seemed to create a permanent haze around me. I looked down at my watch, a cheap, plastic digital thing I'd bought at a drugstore 3 years ago because my good watch, the one Nana Rose had given me for my 21st birthday, had been sold to pay for Marcus's LSAT prep course. It was 4:45 p.m. I had exactly 15 minutes to close out the register, wipe down the counter at the diner, change out of my uniform in the cramped, humid employee bathroom, and sprint 4 blocks to the subway. If I missed the 5:05 train, I would be late. And being late was not an option. Not tonight. Tonight was the culmination of everything. Tonight was the finish line of a marathon I had been running, barefoot and breathless, for 8 agonizing years. Amelia, table 4 needs a refill on the iced tea, and you missed a spot on the pie case. My manager's voice grated against my eardrums, high-pitched and demanding. I didn't wince. I didn't sigh. I just nodded, a reflex honed by years of subservience to the clock and the dollar. On it, I said, my voice raspy. I hadn't slept more than 4 hours a night in, I couldn't even remember how long. Maybe since Marcus started his undergraduate degree. I walked over to table 4, the pitcher of iced tea heavy in my wrist. My joints ached, a deep, throbbing pulse in my knees and lower back that never really went away anymore. I was 34 years old, but my body felt like it belonged to a woman twice my age. I poured the tea, smiling that practiced, dead-eyed smile that service workers wear like armor. "Thank you, sweetie," the older woman at the table said, not looking up from her conversation. "You're welcome," I whispered. I cleaned the pie case. I counted the drawer. My hands trembled slightly as I handled the cash. It wasn't just fatigue, it was adrenaline. This was it. Marcus was graduating. He had passed the bar exam 2 weeks ago, a fact we had celebrated with a quick phone call because I was working a double shift at the archives that night, and tonight was the official family dinner. The success dinner, he called it. I had paid for the dinner, of course. Just like I had paid for his tuition. Just like I had paid for his apartment rent in the city, his textbooks, his suits for internships, and the high-speed internet he claimed he needed for research. I rushed to the bathroom, peeling off the polyester uniform. Underneath, I put on the one nice dress I still owned, a navy blue wrap dress that I had worn to Nana Rose's funeral 4 years ago. It was a little loose now. I had lost weight recently, the stress of the final tuition payments eating away at my appetite. I splashed cold water on my face, trying to scrub away the exhaustion. I looked at myself in the cracked mirror. Dark circles bruised the skin under my eyes. My brown hair was pulled back in a severe bun, fraying at the edges. "It's over," I told my reflection. "After tonight, he has a job. He has a career. You can breathe, Amelia. You can finally breathe." I made the train by 30 seconds. I stood the whole way, clutching the strap of my worn-out purse. Inside was a card for him. I had put $100 in it, money I absolutely did not have, money that should have gone to the electric bill for Nana Rose's house, which I was barely holding onto. But he expected a gift. Marcus always expected a gift. The restaurant he had chosen was an upscale steakhouse downtown, the kind of place with white linen tablecloths that were thicker than my bedsheets and waiters who wore tuxedos. When I walked in, I felt immediately out of place. I smelled like diner food and subway exhaust. The hostess looked me up and down with a thinly veiled sneer before leading me to the private booth in the back. Marcus was already there. He looked expensive. That was the only word for it. He was wearing a suit I had bought him for his first mock trial, Italian wool, tailored to perfection. His hair was styled, his skin glowing with the health of someone who slept 8 hours and ate organic. He looked like a lawyer. He looked like success. "Amelia, you're late," he said, not standing up to greet me. He checked his watch, a gleaming silver timepiece I had bought him when he got into law school. "The train was delayed," I lied, sliding into the booth opposite him. "You look great, Marcus. Congratulations." "Yes." "Yeah, well, someone has to look the part," he said, taking a sip of a dark amber drink. I went ahead and ordered a bottle of Cabernet, the $90 one. We're celebrating, right? My stomach clenched. $90, that was 3 shifts at the diner. "Right," I said, forcing a smile. "Celebrating." The dinner was a blur of him talking about himself. He talked about the firm that had hired him, about the corner office he was eyeing, about the idiots he had graduated with who weren't as smart as him. I just nodded and ate my bread, too anxious to order a full entree. I just wanted to get to the end. I wanted him to say, "Thank you, Amelia. I couldn't have done this without you. Now, let me help you." He didn't. Instead, when the check came, he pushed it across the table toward me without even looking at it. "I'll get the tip," he said magnanimously, pulling out a sleek leather wallet. I stared at the black leather folder containing the bill. My hand shook as I reached for my debit card. I knew it would go through, but only because I had transferred the last of the emergency fund that morning. "So," Marcus said, leaning back in the booth, swirling the last of his wine. His eyes, usually a warm brown like mine, looked strangely flat. Hard. "Now that the boring part is over, we need to talk business." "Business?" I asked, looking up. "You mean your job?" "No," he said, a small, cold smile playing on his lips. "I mean our living situation, or more specifically, the asset." "The asset?" I was confused. My brain was foggy from exhaustion. "Nana Rose's house," he said. "What about the house?" I asked, feeling a prickle of cold sweat on my neck. "I'm maintaining it. It's hard, Marcus, with the property taxes and the repairs, but now that you're working, I was hoping maybe you could contribute a little. Or maybe I could finally go back to school part-time if you helped with the bills." Marcus laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was a dry, barking sound. "Go back to school? Amelia, come on, be realistic. You're 34, that ship has sailed." He reached into his briefcase, a heavy, leather bag that sat on the seat next to him, and pulled out a thick manila envelope. He slid it across the table, right over the spot where the bill had just been. "What is this?" I asked. "It's a lawsuit," he said calmly, as if he were ordering dessert. "A partition action, to be precise, and a contest of the current deed arrangement." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. The noise of the restaurant, the clinking silverware, the murmur of conversations, dropped away into a dull roar. "You're suing me," I whispered. "I'm suing for the immediate sale of the estate," Marcus said, his voice smooth, practiced. He was using his lawyer voice now. "See, Nana Rose left the house to you in that informal will, but the title transfer was, let's say, legally distinct. As her biological grandson, I have a claim to 50% of the asset value. Actually, I'm arguing for 75%, citing mismanagement of the estate during my educational years." "Mismanagement?" My voice rose, cracking. "Marcus, I worked 2 jobs. I worked 18 hours a day to pay for your school. I used the money I saved for the roof repair to pay for your bar prep. I haven't bought new clothes in 4 years." He waved his hand dismissively. "That was your choice, Amelia. No one put a gun to your head. You took on the role of provider. That's what you do. It's your function." "My function?" Tears stung my eyes, hot and angry. "Look," he said, leaning forward, his face hardening. "I'm an attorney now. I'm going to be making serious money. I need capital to buy a condo in the city, something that fits my new status. I can't have my equity tied up in that rotting old Victorian in the suburbs with you living in it like some spinster ghost." "That is my home," I said, my voice trembling. "It's Nana Rose's home. She wanted me to have it because I took care of her when she was sick. Where were you, Marcus? You were at parties. You were networking." "I was building a future," he snapped. "And now that future is here. You served your purpose, Amelia. You got me here. You carried the load. But let's be honest, that's all you're really good for. You're a beast of burden. You exist to carry us, me, the family legacy, that's it. And now I don't need carrying anymore. He stood up, buttoning his jacket. He looked down at me, and for the first time I saw him clearly. I didn't see the little brother I had piggybacked in the park. I didn't see the teenager I had helped with homework. I saw a stranger, a predator. You'll be served officially tomorrow, he said, checking his watch again. Don't fight it, Amelia. You can't afford a lawyer, and I am a lawyer. Just sign the settlement I'm offering. You get 10% of the sale. It's enough to get you a rental somewhere appropriate. He turned and walked away. He didn't look back. I sat there, frozen. The envelope lay on the table like a bomb. The waiter came by, picked up the credit card receipt I had signed, and looked at me with pity. Are you okay, miss? I looked at the empty chair where my brother had sat. The pain in my chest was so sharp I thought I might be having a heart attack, but it wasn't my heart failing. It was my heart breaking. No, I whispered, clutching the envelope. I'm not okay. The betrayal wasn't just in the lawsuit. It wasn't just in the money. It was in his eyes. He had watched me bleed for him for 8 years, and he hadn't seen love. He had seen a resource to be mined until it was empty. His words cut deeper than 8 years of fatigue ever could. The ride home was a blur of neon lights and darkness. I didn't take the train. I couldn't handle the crush of bodies, the noise, the smell of humanity. I walked. I walked 5 miles in heels that were worn down to the nub, my feet blistering, my legs screaming. I needed the pain. The physical pain was the only thing grounding me, keeping me from dissolving into the damp pavement. It was nearly midnight when I reached the house. Nana Rose's house. It was a sprawling, creaky Victorian that sat on a hill overlooking the older part of town. The paint was peeling. I hadn't been able to afford a painter since 2019, and the porch sagged on the left side. But it was beautiful. It was the only place in the world that had ever felt safe. I unlocked the heavy oak door and stepped into the foyer. The smell hit me instantly, lavender and old paper. Nana Rose's smell. She had been gone 4 years, but the house held on to her. It held on to her in the dust motes dancing in the moonlight, in the groaning of the floorboards, in the silence that felt like a held breath. I didn't turn on the lights. I navigated by memory, walking into the kitchen where I had fed Marcus breakfast every morning before school, where I had sat with Nana Rose as she withered away from cancer, holding her hand while Marcus was away at a critical summer internship I had paid for. I sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I had balanced my checkbook 1,000 times, crying over cents that wouldn't add up. I placed the manila envelope in the center of the wood. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely open the clasp. I pulled out the documents. Superior Court of the State, Civil Division, Marcus J. Thorne versus Amelia R. Thorne, complaint for partition by sale. The legal jargon was dense, intentionally intimidating. Even though I wasn't a lawyer, I had spent years reading contracts for the archives, deciphering old deeds and wills. I understood enough. He was claiming that Nana Rose's will, which had been a holographic will, handwritten and witnessed by neighbors, was ambiguous regarding the title. He was claiming that as the educated party, he was better suited to manage the liquidation of the asset. He cited waste. He claimed I was letting the property value diminish. Waste. I looked around the dark kitchen. I had patched the plumbing myself with YouTube videos because I couldn't afford a plumber after paying his semester fees. I had climbed onto the roof in a rainstorm to tarp a leak. I had painted the interior rooms one by one, late at night, so he would have a nice place to bring his friends when he visited, which he never did. He was using my poverty, the poverty he caused, as evidence against me. A wave of nausea rolled over me. I ran to the sink and dry heaved, my stomach empty but cramping violently. My body was revolting against the reality of it. You exist to carry us, that's all you're good for. The voice in my head sounded just like him. Maybe he was right. Hadn't I done exactly that? I had never married. I had no children. I had no career, just jobs. I was a vessel, emptied out to fill him up. My phone buzzed in my purse. I stared at it. It was a text from him. Marcus, 12:15 a.m. Don't be dramatic about this, Mel. It's just business. Call my office in the morning to set up a time to sign. It's better this way. You can't handle that house anyway. I dropped the phone on the counter. The screen cracked. I didn't care. I walked into the living room and sank onto the old velvet sofa. The moonlight streamed through the bay window, illuminating the dust. I felt small. I felt crushed. He had the degree. He had the knowledge. He had the money now, or at least the credit lines. I had nothing but a crumbling house and a bank account that was overdrawn. I closed my eyes, and for a moment I considered it. I considered just signing, just giving up. Maybe he was right. Maybe I was just a beast of burden, and now the burden was gone, so I should just disappear. But then a memory surfaced. It wasn't a memory of Marcus. It was a memory of Nana Rose. It was 3 weeks before she died. She was frail, her skin like parchment, but her eyes were sharp. We were in her bedroom, the one upstairs that I kept closed off now. Amelia, she had whispered, her voice like dry leaves. He's charming, your brother, he's smart, but he has a hollow heart. He takes, that's his nature. He loves us, Nana, I had argued, smoothing her quilt. He's just ambitious. Ambition without gratitude is a dangerous thing, she had said. She had pointed a trembling finger toward the antique vanity in the corner. Bring me the blue box, the one with the false bottom, and call Mr. Henderson, not the office number, his private line. I sat up on the sofa, my heart hammering against my ribs. Mr. Henderson. He was the estate attorney, a man as old as the house itself. When Nana Rose died, he had read the will, the one Marcus knew about, the simple one, but I remembered that afternoon. I remembered Mr. Henderson coming to the house while Marcus was at a frat party. I remembered the scratching of a pen. I remembered Nana Rose's fierce, protective grip on my hand. I stood up. My legs felt stronger now. The exhaustion was still there, a heavy cloak, but underneath it, a spark had ignited. Marcus thought he knew everything. He thought he had examined every angle. He was a junior associate. He was arrogant. He looked at the surface of things, the obvious will, the visible assets, the weary sister who always said yes. He didn't look at the archives. He didn't know about the meticulous records I kept. I walked over to the bookshelf in the hallway. It was lined with old encyclopedias and dust. I reached behind the row of books on the bottom shelf and pulled out a heavy, leather-bound ledger. I opened it. August 12, 2017, Marcus tuition, $12,000. Sold mom's jewelry. January 4, 2018, Marcus rent $1,800. Took double shift at diner. May 10, 2019, Marcus bar prep deposit, $2,500. Canceled health insurance. Page after page. 8 years of blood, sweat, and tears, recorded in black ink. But that wasn't the weapon. That was just the history. The weapon was upstairs, in the blue box. I climbed the stairs, the wood groaning under my feet. I went into Nana Rose's room. It smelled of lavender and silence. I went to the vanity. The blue box was there, untouched. I opened it. Inside were old trinkets, costume jewelry, nothing of value, but I knew the secret. I pressed the hidden latch on the inside rim. The false bottom popped up. There it was, a single, folded document, sealed with Mr. Henderson's wax stamp. To be opened only in the event of a legal challenge to the estate. I held the envelope to my chest. I didn't open it. I knew what it was generally, but I didn't need to read the specifics yet. I just needed to know it existed. Marcus had called me a beast of burden. He had said I existed only to carry him. He was about to learn that when you overload a beast of burden, sometimes it doesn't collapse. Sometimes it kicks. I walked back downstairs, picked up my cracked phone, and dialed a number I hadn't called in 4 years. It was late, but I knew he would be awake. He was an insomniac, just like Nana Rose. Hello, a gravelly, tired voice answered. Mr. Henderson, I said, my voice steady for the first time that night. It's Amelia Thorne, Nana Rose's granddaughter. Amelia, the old man said, his tone softening. It's been a long time, is everything all right? No, I said, looking at the lawsuit on the kitchen table. Marcus has sued me, he wants the house. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then, a low, dry chuckle. Ah, Mr. Henderson said, the young prince makes his move. I wondered when this day would come. He says I have no legal standing, I said. He says he's going to take everything. Does he now? Mr. Henderson's voice sharpened. He's a bright boy, your brother, but he's young. And he's forgotten the first rule of law, Amelia. What's that? I asked. Never ask a question if you don't already know the answer, Mr. Henderson said. And he certainly doesn't know the answer to this one. Do you have the box? I have it, I said, clutching the blue box. Good, Mr. Henderson said. Bring it to my office tomorrow, don't open it. And Amelia. Yes. Don't tell him a thing. Let him think he's won. Let him walk into the courtroom thinking you're defenseless. It will make the fall that much harder. I hung up the phone. I looked out the window at the city lights below, where Marcus was probably sleeping in his high thread count sheets, dreaming of his condo and his corner office. But they had forgotten one crucial thing. I whispered to the empty room. I wasn't just a sister, I was the archivist. I kept the records, and I had kept the receipts. The morning sun didn't bring clarity. It brought a harsh, unforgiving light that exposed every crack in the plaster of Nana Rose's kitchen and every line of exhaustion etched into my face. I hadn't slept. I had sat in the wingback chair in the living room, watching the dust motes dance in the shafts of light, holding the blue box like a holy relay. I needed to understand how we got here. To understand the cruelty of the present, I had to dissect the anatomy of the past. My mind, trained in the meticulous art of archiving, began to sort through the memories, cataloging the sacrifices I had made, not as acts of love, but as evidence of my own foolishness. I remembered the winter of 2018. The polar vortex winter. Marcus had been in his first year of law school. He had called me, his voice tight with panic, telling me that his laptop had crashed, the hard drive fried, all his outlines for torts and contracts gone. He needed a new MacBook Pro, the top-of-the-line model, and he needed it now or he would fail his midterms. I didn't have the money. I had $300 in my checking account, earmarked for the heating oil delivery. Amelia, please, he had begged. I can't use the library computers. They're too slow and the library closes at midnight. I need to study until 4 a.m. This is my future. This is our future. When I'm a partner, I'll buy you 10 laptops. I had hung up the phone and looked at the thermostat. I turned it down to 55 degrees. I put on 3 sweaters. Then I walked to the pawn shop on 4th Street. I pawned Nana Rose's silver tea set, the one she had saved from the war, the one she had made me promise to keep in the family. I got $600 for it. I picked up an extra 4 shifts at the diner, working back-to-backs until my feet were so swollen I had to cut the sides of my sneakers with a box cutter to relieve the pressure. I bought him the laptop. I overnighted it to him. He got an A in torts. I got chilblains on my toes and a persistent cough that lasted until April. He never asked how I paid for it. He never asked why the house was so cold when he came home for Christmas break. He just sat in the living room, typing away on that sleek silver machine, complaining that the Wi-Fi was spotty. That was the dynamic. I was the soil, he was the flower. I was dirt, he was the bloom. A sharp rap on the front door shattered the memory. It wasn't a hesitant knock. It was authoritative, demanding, 3 hard strikes. I stood up, my joints popping. I walked to the door, tightening the belt of my fraying bathrobe. When I opened it, the air left my lungs. It was Marcus, but he wasn't alone. Standing next to him, looped through his arm like a decorative accessory, was a woman I had only seen in Instagram photos. Vanessa. She was the daughter of a senior partner at his firm, a woman who had grown up in a world I had only glimpsed in movies. She was wearing a cream-colored cashmere coat that probably cost more than my car, and her blonde hair was blown out to an impossible, glossy perfection. "Marcus," I said, clutching the robe tighter. It's 8 a.m. "Good morning, Amelia," Marcus said, breezing past me into the foyer without waiting for an invitation. Vanessa followed, her heels clicking sharply on the hardwood. She wrinkled her nose slightly, as if she smelled something unpleasant. Maybe it was the dampness of the old house. Maybe it was me. "We have a brunch reservation at Le Monde at 10, Marcus said, checking his watch, the watch I bought him. But Vanessa wanted to see the property. Since we're moving forward with the partition, we need to get a jump on the staging concepts." "Staging?" I felt like I was speaking a foreign language. "Marcus, I haven't agreed to anything. I haven't even responded to the lawsuit yet." Marcus turned to me, his expression shifting from indifference to mild annoyance. "Amelia, don't be tedious. The lawsuit is a formality. You can't afford to buy me out, and you can't afford a legal battle. The house gets sold. That is the inevitable conclusion. Vanessa has a brilliant interior designer who thinks we can flip this place for a premium if we gut the kitchen and open up the floor plan." Vanessa stepped forward, her eyes scanning the peeling wallpaper with a predatory gleam. She didn't look at me. She looked through me. "The bones are decent," she said, her voice raspy and bored. "But this layout is archaic. The flow is terrible. We'd need to knock out this wall here." She gestured to the wall separating the foyer from the living room, the wall where Nana Rose's portrait hung, and definitely remove that hideous carpeting on the stairs. "That runner is hand-woven," I said, my voice shaking. "Nana brought it from the old country." Vanessa finally looked at me. Her eyes were ice blue, cold and flat. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "It's dusty, sweetie, and it smells like mildew. Buyers in this market want clean lines, not sentimental dust traps." "Vanessa is right," Marcus said, walking over to the fireplace and running a finger along the mantel, checking for dust. He wiped his finger on his handkerchief with a grimace. "This place is a mausoleum, Amelia. You're living in a grave. We're doing you a favor, really. With your share of the sale, you can get a nice lit TLE apartment, something manageable, something that doesn't require maintenance you can't afford." "I have maintained it," I whispered. "I fixed the roof, I fixed the boiler." "You put a Band-Aid on a bullet wound," Marcus scoffed. "Look at you, Amelia. Look at this place. It's sad. You're holding onto a ghost because you have nothing else. No career, no husband, no life, just this." He gestured vaguely at the room. Then he dropped the bombshell. "Besides," he said, slipping his arm around Vanessa's waist, pulling her close, "we need the capital. Vanessa and I are getting married." The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. Married. He was getting married, and I was hearing about it while standing in my bathrobe, being told I was being evicted from my own home. "Congratulations," I said. The word tasted like ash. "Thank you," Vanessa said, flashing a ring that caught the light, a diamond the size of a grape. "It's going to be a massive wedding. The plaza, next June. Daddy is covering the reception, of course, but Marcus insists on buying our first home himself. He's so independent." She looked at him with adoration, completely unaware, or perhaps uncaring, that his independence was being funded by the cannibalization of his sister's life. "We found a brownstone in the city," Marcus added, his chest puffing out. "It's perfect, but the down payment is significant, hence the need to liquidate this asset quickly. I can't have my credit tied up in a non-performing property." "A non-performing property," I repeated. "It's our home, Marcus. It's where you grew up." "It was a house," he corrected. "Now it's an asset, and I need my equity. I've sent the settlement offer to your email. Sign it by Friday, Amelia, or I'll have the sheriff serve the eviction notice once the court grants the partition order. I don't want to do that to you. It would be embarrassing for the family." "Embarrassing," I said. "Yes, we wouldn't want to embarrass the family." "Exactly," he said, mistaking my sarcasm for submission. "I knew you'd see reason. "Come on, Ness, let's go. It smells like old soup in here." They turned and walked out. I watched them go. I watched my brother, the boy whose scraped knees I had bandaged, whose tears I had wiped, whose lies I had covered, walk away with a stranger who viewed my sanctuary as a project. He wasn't just my brother anymore. He was the antagonist. He had been twisted by a world that valued clean lines over history and equity over loyalty. He was influenced by Vanessa. Yes, her entitlement fed his own, but the rot was inside him. It had been there all along, waiting for the right climate to bloom. He thought I was weak. He thought I was the beast of burden, dumb and compliant. He didn't know about the archivist. He didn't know that I had been watching, listening, and recording. And he certainly didn't know about the meeting I had scheduled for 10:00 a.m. with Mr. Henderson. He was planning a wedding, I was planning a funeral, his. Mr. Henderson's office had not changed in 30 years. It was located in a brick building downtown, sandwiched between a bakery and a shoe repair shop. The waiting room smelled of pipe tobacco and peppermint. When I walked in, clutching the blue box against my chest, the secretary, a woman named Mrs. Higgins, who had been there since I was a child, gave me a grim nod. "He's expecting you, Amelia. Go on in." Mr. Henderson was sitting behind a massive mahogany desk that was piled high with files. He looked older than I remembered, his skin translucent like onion skin, but his eyes behind his wire-rimmed glasses were sharp and alert. "Amelia," he said, not rising, his hips were bad, but gesturing to the leather chair opposite him. "Sit. You look like you've gone 12 rounds with a heavyweight." "I feel like it," I said, sinking into the chair. "He came by this morning with his fiancée. They're planning to gut the house. He wants me out in weeks." Mr. Henderson tutted, a soft clicking sound against his teeth. "Impatience, the vice of youth, did you bring it?" I placed the blue box on the desk. I opened the false bottom and took out the sealed envelope. "I haven't opened it," I said, "but I remember Nana saying it was for an emergency." Mr. Henderson took the envelope. He didn't open it either. He just tapped it with a gnarled finger. "This," he said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, "is a holographic codicil. Your grandmother came to me 3 years before she passed. She was worried. She saw things, Amelia. Mothers always do. She saw how Marcus looked at things, not for what they were, but for what they were worth. She saw how you worked yourself to the bone while he bought designer shoes. She never said anything to me," I whispered. "She didn't want to hurt you," he said. "She knew you loved him. She knew you would give him the shirt off your back, so she protected you from yourself. This document essentially states that the primary will, the one leaving the house to you informally, is the binding intent. But it adds a no-contest clause, also known as an in terrorem clause." "What does that mean?" "It means," Mr. Henderson smiled, a slow, shark-like smile, "that if any beneficiary challenges the distribution of the estate or attempts to sue another beneficiary regarding the estate's assets, they forfeit their entire share. If Marcus sues you for the house, he loses his claim to anything. The house becomes 100% yours, legally and irrevocably, and he gets nothing, not a dime." I stared at the envelope. "So, if I show him this, he'll stop." Mr. Henderson shook his head slowly. "No, Amelia. If you show him this now, he will claim it's a forgery. He will drag it out in probate for years. He will drain your resources until you have to sell the house just to pay legal fees. That is his strategy, attrition." "So what do I do?" "You let him sue," Mr. Henderson said. "You let him stand up in open court on the record and formally demand the partition. You let him testify that he is contesting the will. You let him trigger the trap himself. Once he has sworn under oath that he is challenging the estate, then we present the codicil. At that point, the act is done. The clause is activated. There is no takebacks." A cold chill ran down my spine. It was a gamble. It required nerves of steel. "But there's something else," I said, my mind racing. "Marcus said he needs the money for a down payment. He said he wants to buy a brownstone, but something felt off. He was too desperate. too aggressive. Desperation is a powerful motivator, Mr. Henderson agreed. Perhaps you should find out why he is so desperate. Knowledge is power, Amelia. You are the archivist, aren't you? Find the records. I left the office with a photocopy of the codicil. The original stayed in Mr. Henderson's safe, and a new sense of purpose. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was a hunter. I went straight to the public library. The internet at the house was too slow, and I couldn't risk Marcus seeing my search history if he somehow had access to the account. I sat at a terminal in the back corner and began to dig. I started with the obvious: social media. Vanessa's profile was public. It was a curated feed of luxury, trips to Aspen, dinners at Michelin-star restaurants, and photos of her and Marcus. Power couple lawyer life. I looked closer at the photos. In one from 3 months ago, Marcus was wearing a watch, a Patek Philippe. I quickly Googled the model. Retail price, $45,000. I did the math. A first-year associate, even at a top firm, made good money, but not that kind of money. Not after taxes, rent in the city, and student loan payments. Wait, he didn't have student loan payments. I had paid for everything. So where was his money going? I dug deeper. I accessed the county civil court records. It cost me $20 to do a statewide search, $20 I needed for groceries, but I paid it. I typed in Marcus J. Thorne. 2 hits. One was the lawsuit against me, filed yesterday. The other was a judgment, filed 6 months ago. Thorne versus Luxury Auto Leasing. It was a default judgment for unpaid lease payments on a Porsche Cayenne. Amount owed, $12,500. I felt a surge of adrenaline. He was living beyond his means, way beyond. But a judgment for a car wouldn't make him desperate enough to sue his sister for her home. There had to be more. I thought about his friends, the ones he bragged about, the crypto guys, the investment bros. I searched his username, the one he used for everything since high school, M. Thorne Law, on various forums. It took me 3 hours. My eyes burned. The library was closing in 10 minutes. Then I found it, on a subreddit dedicated to high-risk options trading. A user named M. Thorne Law had been posting frantically for the last 4 months. Post from 3 months ago, just leveraged $50K on margin. This is a sure thing, right, boys? Post from 1 month ago, need liquidity fast. Margin call incoming. Any advice on bridge loans? Post from 2 weeks ago, I have a guaranteed asset coming liquid soon, inheritance. Just need to hold off the creditors for 30 days. Can I use a pending lawsuit as collateral? My hand flew to my mouth. He wasn't buying a brownstone. He wasn't building a future. He was broke. He had gambled away his salary and probably money he didn't even have. He was drowning in margin debt. He needed the house money not to buy a new life, but to save himself from financial ruin. The down payment story was a lie for Vanessa. If she knew he was a gambler with massive debt, she and her powerful father would drop him in a heartbeat. He was suing me to cover his bad bets. I sat back in the hard plastic chair, the library lights flickering overhead. The picture was complete. Marcus wasn't just cruel, he was cornered. He was a trapped animal, lashing out at the only thing he thought he could control, me. He thought I was the resource he could mine one last time to fill the hole he had dug for himself. I printed the screenshots. I printed the court judgment. I added them to my file, right next to the codicil. I had the leverage. I had the trap. He wanted to play games. He wanted to talk about assets and liabilities. I looked at the stack of papers in my hands. "Okay, Marcus," I whispered, "let's go to court." The weeks leading up to the first formal legal proceeding were a slow, grinding torture. Marcus didn't just sue me, he besieged me. It started with the letters, formal, aggressive demands from his law firm, sent via certified mail, piling up on the hallway table like snowdrifts. Notice to inspect, demand for accounting, interrogatories. He was burying me in paper, a classic litigation tactic designed to exhaust the opponent's resources and will. He knew I didn't have a lawyer on record yet. Mr. Henderson was operating as a consultant in the shadows to keep our trap hidden, so Marcus assumed I was drowning in the legalese, panic-stricken and confused. He was half right. I was panic-stricken, but I wasn't confused. I was angry. The first major confrontation wasn't at the kitchen table or over the phone. It was the deposition. Marcus had scheduled it at his firm's offices, a glass and steel skyscraper in the financial district that pierced the clouds, a monument to the kind of money I couldn't even comprehend. He wanted me on his turf. He wanted me to feel small, intimidated by the marble floors, the security guards who checked my ID with suspicion, and the silent, high-speed elevators that made my ears pop. I wore my best suit, a charcoal gray ensemble I had bought at a thrift store 5 years ago. It was clean and pressed, but I knew the fabric looked cheap under the harsh fluorescent lights of the conference room. When I walked in, the room was freezing. That was intentional, too. Marcus sat at the head of a long, boat-shaped table. He wasn't alone. He had a court reporter, a woman with a stenography machine who didn't look up when I entered, and a senior partner from his firm, a man named Mr. Sterling, who looked like a shark in a three-piece suit. And to my shock, Vanessa was there, sitting in the corner, scrolling on her phone. "Amelia," Marcus said, not standing up. He gestured to a lone chair on the opposite side of the table. "Have a seat. This is Mr. Sterling. He's overseeing the case to ensure propriety, and you know Vanessa." "Why is she here?" I asked, my voice echoing slightly in the glass room. "Moral support," Vanessa chirped, not looking up from her screen. "And because I have a vested interest in the asset. Daddy wants to make sure the timeline is solid for the renovation team." "Right," I said, sitting down. The chair was hard and uncomfortable. "You don't have counsel?" Mr. Sterling asked, peering at me over his spectacles. His voice was dry, devoid of empathy. "I am representing myself today," I said, keeping my hands folded in my lap to hide the trembling. "Very unwise," Mr. Sterling muttered. "But it's your right. Marcus, proceed." The deposition began. For 2 hours, Marcus grilled me. He asked about every repair I had made to the house in the last 4 years. He asked for receipts for paint, for nails, for the plumber. He tried to trap me into admitting that I had deferred maintenance to lower the property value. "Isn't it true, Amelia, that you chose to patch the roof yourself rather than hire a licensed contractor, thereby voiding the warranty on the shingles?" Marcus asked, his pen poised over his legal pad. "I didn't have $5,000 for a contractor," I said steadily, "because I had just paid for your bar exam review course." Marcus's eyes flickered with annoyance. Objection, non-responsive. The question was about the shingles, not your alleged charity. Strike the commentary. He was performing. He was showing off for Mr. Sterling and Vanessa, playing the role of the ruthless litigator. He was treating his own sister like a hostile witness in a murder trial. But I waited. I answered his questions with monosyllabic responses. Yes, no, I don't recall, just as Mr. Henderson had instructed. I let him think he was winning. I let him think he was cornering me. Then he made a mistake. "Amelia," he said, leaning forward, a smug smile playing on his lips. "Let's talk about your finances. You claim you can't afford to buy me out. But isn't it true that you have a savings account? We need to establish your insolvency if you're claiming hardship." "I have no savings," I said. "You know that." "Do I?" He raised an eyebrow. "You've always been so frugal, hoarding pennies. Unlike those of us who understand that you have to spend money to make money. That's why I need this capital, to invest, to grow the family wealth, something you've never understood." "Invest," I repeated the word softly. "Is that what you see?" "All it." "Excuse me," Marcus stopped writing. I reached into my tote bag. I didn't pull out the codicil. I pulled out a single sheet of paper, a screenshot from the high-stakes options forum, blown up so the text was clear. "You say you need the money to invest and to buy a home with Vanessa," I said, keeping my voice level. "But Mr. Sterling, Does the firm have a policy regarding associates who carry six-figure gambling debts on margin accounts? The silence in the room was absolute. It was the kind of silence that happens after a gunshot. Marcus went pale, not just white-gray. The blood drained from his face so fast I thought he might faint. Vanessa looked up, frowning. What did she say? Mr. Sterling turned his head slowly to look at Marcus. Marcus, what is she talking about? She's lying, Marcus stammered. His composure shattered instantly. The slick lawyer facade cracked, revealing the panicked boy underneath. She's crazy. She's desperate. This is relevant to nothing. Objection, harassment. I have the logs, Marcus, I said, pushing the paper across the sleek table. Username M. Thornlaw, you posted 3 weeks ago. Need liquidity fast. Margin call incoming. You owe $80,000 to a brokerage firm, and you have a judgment against you for a Porsche Cayenne. I turned to Vanessa. He isn't buying a brownstone, Vanessa. He's trying to sell Nana Rose's house to pay off his bookie essentially. He's broke. Vanessa stood up, her phone clattering to the table. She looked at the paper, then at Marcus. Her expression wasn't one of betrayal, it was one of disgust. Marcus, she said, her voice sharp. Is this true? Daddy said he ran a background check, but he didn't check. Read it. It's out of context, Marcus yelled, standing up so abruptly his chair tipped over. It was a simulated trading account. It was for research, for a case. For a case? Mr. Sterling picked up the paper, adjusting his glasses. He read the posts. He looked at the timestamps. He looked at Marcus with a gaze that could peel paint. This timestamp is 3:00 a.m. on a Tuesday. You were supposed to be drafting the briefs for the Kensington merger. I was, Marcus pleaded, sweat beading on his forehead. I was taking a break. Sir, please, my sister is vindictive. She's trying to sabotage my career because she's jealous. She's a waitress. She doesn't understand high finance. I understand that you're suing me to cover your losses, I said, standing up. My legs felt steady. I understand that you called me a beast of burden, but beasts of burden have strong backs, Marcus, and we have long memories. Get out, Marcus screamed, pointing at the door. Get out of my office. I'll see you in court. I'll take everything. I'll leave you homeless. You'll be on the street. Marcus, sit down, Mr. Sterling barked. I gathered my things. I didn't look back at Vanessa, who was staring at Marcus like he was a cockroach she had found in her salad. I didn't look at Mr. Sterling. I looked at my brother one last time. Yes, I said calmly, I'll see you in court. I walked out of the glass room, past the security guards, and into the elevator. When the doors closed, I didn't cry. I leaned my head against the cool metal wall and exhaled. I had drawn first blood. I had exposed his motive, but I knew this wasn't the end. A cornered animal is dangerous, but a cornered animal that has been humiliated in front of its pack is lethal. He wouldn't stop now. He couldn't. He had to destroy me, or he was finished. The aftermath of the deposition was like the retreat of the tide before a tsunami. For 3 days, there was silence. No emails, no letters. Then the wave hit. It started with a phone call at the diner. It was my manager, looking pale and uncomfortable. Amelia, she said, pulling me into the back office. I don't know how to tell you this, but we got a call from the health department and the labor board. Someone filed an anonymous complaint claiming you were stealing tips and handling food without gloves while sick. What? I gasped. I've never stolen a dime, and I wash my hands until they bleed. I know, she said, her eyes watering. I know you, but they have to investigate. Corporate is spooked. They want me to suspend you pending the investigation. Suspend me, my knees buckled. I need this job. I have the legal fees, the house. I'm so sorry, she whispered. It came from a law firm's number initially, though they claimed to be a concerned citizen. Amelia, who are you fighting? I walked out of the diner, my apron in my hand, the midday sun blinding me. He was attacking my livelihood. He was trying to starve me out before the trial. When I got home, the power was off. I called the electric company. There was a request to disconnect service. the operator said. The request came from a Mr. Marcus Thorne, who claimed to be the executor of the estate and stated the property W. as vacant. It's not vacant, I screamed into the phone, standing in my dark hallway. I live here. I'm sorry, ma'am, but with the conflicting claims on the deed, we have to flag the account. You'll need to come in person with proof of residency and pay a reconnection fee. I sat on the floor in the dark. He was dismantling my life piece by piece. He wasn't just trying to win a lawsuit, he was trying to erase me. He wanted me broken, destitute, and begging him for mercy so I would sign the settlement. But he had made a fatal miscalculation. He assumed that pressure would make me crack. He forgot that pressure is also what creates diamonds. I didn't call him, I didn't beg. Instead, I lit candles, the ones Nana Rose used to light for her saints, and I went to work. I spent the next 2 weeks living like a ghost in my own home. I showered at the gym, using a guest pass Mr. Henderson's secretary slipped me. I ate canned beans heated over a camping stove I found in the attic. And every day, I met with Mr. Henderson. We were building the fortress. He will try to expedite the trial, Mr. Henderson said, pacing his office. He needs the money now. The margin calls are likely coming in daily. He's probably borrowing from loan sharks or maxing out credit cards to keep Vanessa happy. We need to be ready. I found more, I said, laying a new stack of documents on his desk. Since I was suspended, I had nothing but time. I had gone back to the archives of my own life. I dug through boxes in the basement I hadn't touched in a decade. What is this? Mr. Henderson asked. Letters, I said, from Nana Rose to her sister in Ireland. I had found a bundle of airmail envelopes, tied with blue ribbon. Nana Rose had written them during the years I was caring for her, and Marcus was in college. Read this one. I pointed to a letter dated May 2019. Mr. Henderson adjusted his glasses and read aloud. My heart breaks for Amelia. She works until her hands shake. Marcus came home this weekend, not to see me, but to ask for money for a trip to Cancun. I told him no. He screamed at me. He told me I was a useless old woman and that he couldn't wait until I was gone so he could liquidate this dump. Amelia doesn't know. She defends him, but I know. That is why I am going to see Mr. Henderson on Tuesday. Mr. Henderson looked up, his eyes wide. This establishes intent. This proves the codicil wasn't just a whim, it was a direct response to his abuse and greed. It solidifies the no contest clause as a protective measure. It proves he's always been this way, I said, my voice hard. He didn't just lose his way, he never had a way. Meanwhile, the cracks in Marcus's world were widening. I saw it on social media. Vanessa had stopped posting photos of him. Her status had changed to "it's complicated." Then, 3 days before the trial, I got a text. Marcus, 11:45 p.m. You think you're smart? You think ruining my reputation with Vanessa is a win? You just made it worse for yourself. Now I don't just need the money, I need revenge. I'm going to destroy you in court. I'm going to make sure you owe me money by the time this is over. He was unhinged, he was terrified. The final piece of preparation came the night before the trial. Mr. Henderson came to the house. He carried a briefcase that looked heavier than usual. The judge assigned to the case is Judge Alastair Vance, Mr. Henderson said, sitting at my kitchen table by candlelight. Is he fair? He's strict, Mr. Henderson said. He hates theatrics, he hates waste, and he despises familial ingratitude. I knew him 40 years ago. He's a man who values the written word. He placed the original codicil on the table. The wax seal was still unbroken. Tomorrow, he said, Marcus will present his case. He will call you to the stand. He will try to paint you as a squatter, a leech. He will lie. You must remain silent. You must let him spin his web until he is fully entangled. And then, Mr. Henderson patted the document, we ask him the question, and we end him. I looked at the document. It was just a piece of paper, but it was also a sword. I'm ready, I said. And I was. The fear was gone. The sadness was gone. All that was left was a cold, crystalline clarity. I had sacrificed my youth for him. I had sacrificed my dreams for him. I would not sacrifice my home. The next morning, I woke up before dawn. I dressed in the navy blue dress, the one I wore to the graduation dinner, the one I wore to Nana's funeral. It hung loosely on my frame now. I pulled my hair back. I put on the watch Nana gave me, the one I had bought back from the pawn shop 3 days ago using the last of my grocery money. I walked out of the house. I locked the door. "I'll be back," I whispered to the peeling paint and the sagging porch. "And when I come back, you'll be safe." I took the bus to the courthouse. The sky was gray and heavy with rain as I ascended the marble. E-steps, I saw Marcus. He was standing near the pillars, smoking a cigarette, a habit he said he detested. He looked haggard. His suit was rumpled. His eyes were red-rimmed. He was alone. Vanessa was nowhere to be seen. Mr. Sterling was there, looking impatient and checking his phone. Marcus saw me. He threw the cigarette down and crushed it under his expensive Italian heel. He didn't say a word. He just glared, a look of pure, unadulterated hatred. I didn't look away. I walked past him, my head high, the sound of my cheap heels echoing on the stone like a war drum. We entered courtroom 4B. The bailiff opened the heavy wooden doors. The room smelled of old wood and justice. Mr. Henderson was already there at the defendant's table, arranging his files with slow, deliberate movements. He looked up and winked, a tiny, imperceptible twitch of his eyelid. I sat down beside him. "All rise," the bailiff bellowed. Judge Vance entered. He was a mountain of a man with a shock of white hair and a face carved from granite. He sat down, adjusted his robes, and looked over his spectacles at us. "Case number 49,204, he rumbled. "Thorne versus Thorne. Counsel, are we ready to proceed?" Marcus stood up. "Ready for the plaintiff, Your Honor." His voice was strong, but I could hear the tremor underneath. "Ready for the defendant, Your Honor," Mr. Henderson said, his voice like gravel. "Very well," the judge said, opening statements. Marcus walked to the center of the room. He turned to face the judge, his back to me. He began to speak, weaving a tapestry of lies about his rightful inheritance, his sentimental attachment to the home, and his sister's gross mismanagement of the estate. He was articulate, he was persuasive, he was lying. I watched him, and for the first time in my life, I didn't see my brother. I didn't see family. I saw the defendant, and I was the prosecution. The air in the courtroom was stagnant, heavy with the scent of floor wax and the dull hum of the ventilation system. It felt less like a hall of justice and more like an operating theater where my life was about to be dissected. Marcus took the stand first. He walked with that confident, long-strided gait he had perfected, the walk of a man who believes the ground exists solely to support his feet. He buttoned his suit jacket, smoothed his tie, and smiled at Judge Vance, a smile that was respectful, humble, and entirely manufactured. "Mr. Thorne," his lawyer, Mr. Sterling, began, pacing slowly before the witness box. "Please explain to the court why you are seeking a partition by sale of the estate at 42 Oakwood Drive." Marcus cleared his throat. "Your Honor, it is with a heavy heart that I bring this action. That house is my family's legacy. But frankly, it is falling into ruin. My sister, Amelia, has been living there alone for 4 years, and despite her best intentions, she simply lacks the financial acumen and the resources to maintain an asset of that magnitude." I gripped the edge of the defendant's table so hard my knuckles turned white. "Lacks the resources," I thought, "because I gave them all to you." "She has allowed the roof to leak," Marcus continued, his voice dripping with faux concern. "She has let the garden overgrow. The property value is stagnating. I have tried to reason with her. I have offered to buy her out to help her move into a more suitable apartment. But she is obstinate. She is letting our grandmother's legacy rot because she is emotionally unable to let go." "And what is your goal, Mr. Thorne?" Mr. Sterling asked. "My goal is to save the equity," Marcus said, placing a hand over his heart. I want to sell the property, ensure my sister gets her fair share so she can be taken care of, and invest my portion to secure my own future, as Nana Rose would have wanted. I am trying to be the responsible steward here. Thank you, Mr. Sterling said. No further questions. Judge Vance turned his gaze toward our table. Cross-examination. Mr. Henderson stood up. He didn't rush. He moved with the slow, creaking deliberation of an ancient oak tree. He walked to the center of the room, carrying nothing but a single sheet of paper, the screenshot of the gambling forum. He left the blue box on the table. Mr. Thorne, Mr. Henderson's voice was raspy, filling the room like smoke. You speak of financial acumen. You speak of stewardship. I do, Marcus replied, his chin raised. You are a junior associate at Sterling and Associates, correct? I am. And your salary is substantial. It is commensurate with my skills, Marcus said smoothly. Then tell me, Mr. Henderson said, stepping closer. Why is there a judgment against you for $12,000 regarding a Porsche Cayenne? Mr. Sterling shot up. Objection, relevance. It goes to the witness's credibility regarding financial stewardship, Your Honor, Mr. Henderson said calmly. Judge Vance peered over his glasses. Overruled. Answer the question. Marcus shifted in his seat. That was a clerical error. A misunderstanding with the leasing company. It's being resolved. I see, Mr. Henderson said. He didn't press it. He just let the lie hang there. Then he walked back to the table and picked up the ledger, my handwritten ledger. You claim my client, your sister, lacks resources. Can you tell the court who paid for your tuition at Georgetown Law? Marcus stiffened. There were family contributions. Specifics, Mr. Thorne, Mr. Henderson snapped. Did you pay it? No. Did you take out loans? No. So Amelia Thorne paid it. Is that correct? Marcus looked at me. His eyes were cold daggers. She assisted, yes. She assisted, Mr. Henderson repeated, opening the ledger. August 2017, $12,000. January 2018, $1,800 for rent. May 2019, $2,500 for bar prep. Mr. Thorne, this ledger indicates that your sister has assisted you to the tune of nearly $140,000 over 8 years. Is that accurate? I haven't audited her little notebook, Marcus sneered. It's not a notebook, Mr. Thorne. It's evidence, Mr. Henderson said, slamming the ledger shut. The sound echoed like a gunshot. But let us get to the heart of the matter. You are suing for partition. You are asking this court to overturn the current living arrangement and force a sale. You are, in essence, contesting the distribution of your grandmother's estate as it stands. I am asserting my rights as a beneficiary, Marcus said, his voice rising. Nana Rose died without a formal will regarding the house. It passes by intestate succession. Half to me, half to her. That is the law. I am simply demanding what is mine. So you are formally challenging the status quo. You are contesting your sister's claim to the home. Yes, Marcus shouted, losing his composure. I am contesting it. She has no right to keep me from my money. It's my house, too. Mr. Henderson smiled. It was a terrifying expression. Thank you, Mr. Thorne. You have made your position perfectly clear. You may step down. Marcus looked confused. He had expected a fight. He had expected to be drilled on the details. Instead, he was dismissed. He walked back to his table, looking at Mr. Sterling, who shrugged. Defense, call your witness, Judge Vance said. The defense calls no witnesses, Your Honor, Mr. Henderson said. A murmur ran through the courtroom. Mr. Sterling looked shocked. Marcus looked triumphant. He thought I was giving up. He thought I was too weak to fight. However, Mr. Henderson continued, his voice rising, the defense wishes to submit a piece of evidence that has come to light. A document that was entrusted to my care by the deceased, Rose Thorne, to be opened only in the event of a legal contest between her grandchildren. He picked up the blue box. He walked to the bench. Your Honor, I present to you the holographic codicil to the last will and testament of Rose Thorne, dated May 14, 2019. Authenticated by my office, sealed with my stamp, and witnessed by 2 disinterested parties. Judge Vance took the envelope. He looked at the seal. He looked at Marcus, who had gone very, very still. "Mr. Sterling," the judge said, "you may want to approach the bench." Mr. Sterling walked up. The judge broke the seal. The sound of tearing paper was the only sound in the world. He unfolded the document. He adjusted his glasses. He read it silently. As he read, his eyebrows went up. Then they furrowed. Then he looked at Marcus with an expression that wasn't just judgment, it was disappointment. "Mr. Thorne," Judge Vance said, his voice booming without the microphone. "Counselor, you are a graduate of Georgetown Law, are you not?" Marcus stood up, his legs shaking. "Yes, Your Honor." "Then you are undoubtedly familiar with the concept of an interim clause, commonly known as a no contest clause." Marcus's face went the color of old ash. He gripped the table. "Yes, Your Honor." "Then I suggest you listen very carefully," Judge Vance said. He held up the paper. "I, Rose Thorne, being of sound mind, do hereby amend my intentions regarding my estate. Knowing the sacrifices my granddaughter Amelia has made, and fearing the greed that has taken root in my grandson Marcus, I hereby decree that the property at 42 Oakwood Drive is to be the sole property of Amelia Thorne." The judge paused. Marcus let out a small, strangled sound. "Furthermore," the judge read, his voice hardening, "should any beneficiary of this estate seek to contest this arrangement, or bring legal action against another beneficiary regarding the assets of this estate, that beneficiary shall immediately forfeit their entire share of the estate. They shall receive nothing, not $1, not one brick." The courtroom erupted. Mr. Sterling dropped his pen. Vanessa, who was sitting in the back row, gasped audibly. I sat there, ears streaming down my face. Nana Rose, she had known. She had seen him for what he was, even when I refused to. She had reached out from the grave to protect me. "Order," Judge Vance banged his gavel. "Order in this court." He looked at Marcus, who was now swaying on his feet. "Mr. Thorne, you just stood under oath and confirmed, repeatedly, that you are contesting the distribution of this estate. You have filed a partition action. You have triggered the clause." I didn't know," Marcus stammered. "It was hidden, this is ambush." "It is a valid testamentary document," Judge Vance snapped. "And you, as a lawyer, should know that due diligence includes asking the executor if such documents exist before you file a lawsuit against your own family." The judge turned to me, his eyes softened. "Amelia Thorne, under the terms of this codicil, which I find to be valid and binding, you are the sole owner of the property. The plaintiff, Marcus Thorne, is disinherited from the estate in its entirety." He turned back to Marcus. "The case is dismissed with prejudice. And Mr. Thorne, I will be forwarding the transcript of these proceedings to the State Bar Ethics Committee. A lawyer who sues his family to cover gambling debts revealed by the defense, and who lies about his financial standing, is perhaps not fit to hold the title." "No," Marcus screamed. "No, you can't. That house is worth $500,000. I need it, I need it." "Bailiff," Judge Vance said calmly, "remove the plaintiff." 2 officers stepped forward. Marcus was sobbing now, a broken, hysterical sound. He reached out toward me. Amelia, please, you can't let them do this. I'm your brother, I'm sorry, I'll drop the suit. Just give me a share, just 10%, please." I looked at him, I saw the tears, I saw the panic, but I also saw the years of neglect. I saw the pawned watch. I saw the frozen winters. I saw the smirk on his face when he called me a beast of burden. I stood up, I looked him in the eye. "You said I exist to carry you, Marcus," I said, my voice cutting through his screams. "But I'm putting the load down." The bailiffs dragged him out, the doors slammed shut. Mr. Sterling was frantically packing his briefcase. He looked at Mr. Henderson. I had no idea about the gambling debts, or the codicil. I will be withdrawing as his counsel immediately." "You do that," Mr. Henderson said. I looked at the empty courtroom. The silence returned, but it wasn't heavy anymore. It was light, it was clean. "It's over, Amelia," Mr. Henderson said, closing the blue box. "It's finally over." Walking out of the courthouse felt like learning to walk on a new planet. The gravity was different. The crushing weight that had sat on my shoulders for 8 years, the weight of Marcus's expectations, his debts, his future, was gone. Mr. Henderson walked me to the bus stop. The rain had stopped, and the sun was breaking through the gray clouds, casting long, golden beams on the wet pavement. "What will you do now?" he asked. "I'm going to go home," I said. "I'm going to turn on the heat. I'm going to cook a meal that isn't from a can. And then I think I'm going to sleep for a week." He chuckled. "You've earned it, and the fees, don't worry about them. Your grandmother paid me a retainer years ago," she said, "for the day Amelia needs to fight back." I hugged him. He smelled like tobacco and safety. "Thank you." "Don't thank me," he said. "Thank the archivist. You saved yourself, Amelia. I just held the paper." I took the bus home. When I got off at my stop, I walked up the hill to 42 Oakwood Drive. The house looked different. It didn't look like a burden anymore. It didn't look like a rotting asset. It looked like a castle. I unlocked the door. The silence inside wasn't lonely, it was peaceful. I went to the kitchen. I made tea. I sat at the table where Marcus had thrown the lawsuit at me. My phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "Please, I have nowhere to go. Vanessa dumped me. The firm fired me. They're coming for the car. Amelia, I'm sleeping in my office until security kicks me out. Just let me stay in the basement. I'll do the repairs, I promise." I looked at the message. A part of me, the old part, the sister who had bandaged his knees, wanted to say yes. He was my blood, he was broken. But then I remembered the codicil. Ambition without gratitude is a dangerous thing. If I let him back in, he would consume me again. He would eat my peace until there was nothing left. He didn't want a sister, he wanted a host. I typed a reply. "You have a law degree, Marcus. Use it to file for bankruptcy. Do not contact me again." I blocked the number. I put the phone down. I picked up the ledger, the record of my sacrifice. I walked to the fireplace in the living room. I struck a match. I watched the pages curl and blacken, the tuition payments, the rent checks, the bar prep fees, all of it turning to smokin'. Rising up the chimney. I wasn't an archivist of pain anymore. The record was closed. I went to the window and looked out at the garden. It was overgrown, yes. There were weeds. But there were also roses, Nana Rose's roses, struggling to bloom beneath the thorns. I would prune them, I would clear the weeds, I would paint the walls, I would go back to school, maybe for history, maybe for library science. I was 34. My life wasn't over, it was just beginning. I was no longer the foundation for someone else's skyscraper. I was the architect of my own home.